is for parents to be an important part of their kids' online experiences, and that the knowledge and the tools that we share today will help empower us to become the guardians of our youth and teens that they so need to navigate the digital realm safely and responsibly. It's also a key part of TikTok's commitment to ensuring teen safety and digital literacy, particularly after the recent calls from the government for parents to limit kids under 13 from owning social media accounts. Easier said than done, I know, but that's why we're here today. But before we get into anything, I would first like to invite the lovely Bea Bautista, the TikTok head of communications for Malaysia and Philippines, to share a quick message with all of you.
Thank you, Shani. Hi, everyone. I'm Bea, and thank you so much for being here with us today. We're so happy to have each and every one of you. So this is really a very important topic for us, and we are just so grateful to have our wonderful panelists and our moderator to join us today. So without further ado, I would like to thank you again and welcome you to this first panel, and I hope that you enjoy and that you learn a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bea. Very short form content, so typical of TikTok. Okay, so let's get right to it. Joining us this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to put this all into context and to give us perspective on the topic. We have actually a wonderful panel. I'm so excited to introduce to you, starting first and foremost with Madiha Mahmood, the CEO of Content Forum. Welcome, Madiha. Then, of course, we have Isabel, Director of Operations from the Ibu Family Resource Group. And for those of you on TikTok, you may or may not know of Sufina, TikTok creator, 699,000 followers. I've been picking up tips from her prior to this event. Next up, Achai, TikTok creator. He has an amazing channel focusing on gaming, and he's got 124,000 followers, only 21 years old. And of course, Anwar Fazil, TikTok Malaysia, Head of Government Relations and Public Policy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into it. Thank you so much for being here today to lend your voice on this important topic. Now, I know I've introduced you slightly and when I called you up, but if we could just first start off by going around one time to allow you to just give a quick introduction about what you do. Madiha.
Thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. I guess what I can say as a method of introduction is currently I'm the CEO of the Content Forum, which is an industry forum that hopes to help facilitate a safe, creative and thriving content ecosystem. I have 11 years of experience in the content realm because I was from Astro before and then AirAsia Digital before that. I was just being a lawyer. But right now, I think where I am now is the most exciting part of my career because content is not what it was even 5 years ago. So it is definitely a position that I am enjoying, but it comes with its challenges, and I think that's what we're here to talk about today. To add, just to give a little bit of context, I'm also a mom of 3 kids, 17-year-old, 14-year-old, and 8-year-old. Yes.
So she's covering the whole breadth of like young people today, okay? Next up, Isabel.
Hi everyone, I'm Isabel. So just a bit about Ibu. Ibu has been around since 1989. We are a non-profit organization and it's fully run by volunteer moms for moms. And what we aim to do is really provide support for the parenting community in Malaysia, especially in the Klang Valley. But we really started out as a support for new parents, you know. I think if any of you are parents here, you'll never forget the first few years. It's incredibly difficult. But as society matures and new challenges are cropping up each generation, we're definitely looking forward to broaden our support as well, especially in terms of social media awareness. I'm a mom of 2. My boys are 7 and 4, so really the beginnings of going into the primary school age. So I think it's very timely and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Lovely. Next up, Sufina.
Hello everybody, I'm Sufina. On TikTok, I'm famously known as Teacher Sufina. I'm a content creator. I have 3 kids, 26, 21, and 19. So if you look at me now, you'll be thinking, huh? She on TikTok? So I'm more than glad to be invited today. I've got lots to share. Basically what I do, I coach TikTok. So if any of you here are thinking of building or growing a content on TikTok or becoming a good content creator yourself, you can just Roger me afterwards. Okay.
Sufina gives me hope. It's never too late to start generating positive content on TikTok. Okay, Achai.
Hi everyone, my name is Danish, or as known as Achai. I'm a gaming content creator and also a gaming live streamer. So if you guys ada anak-anak, maybe diorang kenal I siapa lah. Sebab I tahu you guys memang kurang main game kan. So biasa sekarang ni anak-anak yang main game. So that's.
And Achai start umur 16 tahun kan?
Yes, betul.
Mobile Legend. Sekarang?
Mobile Legends juga.
Mobile Legend juga. Okay, so you know who to speak to if you have a kid in that age group, okay? All right, last but not least, Anwar, I understand you've been 4 months here at TikTok.
Hi everyone. Yes, it's my 4th month in TikTok and I am the head of public policy for TikTok. My main role is to interface with governments, the government of Malaysia. And I think today one of the key roles is how do we have a better and safer online platform for children. I'd be remiss to also not wish everyone here a belated Mother's Day for everyone with kids with 2 legs or 4-legged ones. Thank you.
And also Father's Day coming soon, so this is very timely. Okay, let's kick off our discussion by setting the stage for our topic today, okay? We can't talk about kids' safety in the digital realm without actually talking about what parenting is like and raising a family in this age of the internet. It's a completely different experience from what it was like for our parents, okay? So let's kick off with Madiha. You said you have 3 kids and they cover the breadth of the teenage experience. How has parenting for you been impacted by the digital age, especially since you also work at the Content Forum and you see how this affects young people in general?
First off, I always say that I am older than the internet. And I had to parent children in a day and age where social media was relatively new and it was something that I myself was learning about. So it's very tough for parents when you want to guide your kids on things that you yourself are starting to learn about. And I think parenting these days requires us to, we simply have to take the extra step. We have to do the extra homework. In those days, you can keep your child safe by keeping them at home. The only thing you worry about is when they're outside playing on their bikes and they go okay in traffic. That's it. But they're at home, they're safe. But now, things which are dangerous outside can very easily enter the home, into their rooms, their devices, without us knowing if we don't pay attention to it. Stranger danger was a thing, and you worry about the guy in the trench coat who flashes you. But now, it's the guy who's playing games with your son who says he's also 13, but he's actually a 60-year-old man who's a pedophile. So these are the worries that parents constantly have. And then you balance it with the worry of, what if I overprotect my child? What if what I'm doing is actually stifling my child's creativity or his ability to get ahead in the digital world? What if I ban this and that, if I supervise too much, if I don't let them watch certain content, and then they are ketinggalan, or they can't relate to their peers? So it's really tough for parents. I feel that parenting at this day and age really does require effort beyond what our parents used to have. And it's also something that needs to be done collectively. They say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes the whole global community to raise a child these days. And one of the best ways to do it is to make sure the child's playground, which is now, I'm afraid, is the internet, is kept safe, and each of us have a role to play with that.
You're absolutely right. That playground that we used to worry about strangers in is now literally the entire world. Isabel, I know your kids are younger. They're not at the age group yet that is supposed to be on social media, but what has it been like for you navigating this when just about everybody else's kids these days has a gadget and is on social media?
Definitely. I was just sharing with Bea just now that last year, my son, then 6, told me, hey mom, there's something that you probably won't approve of, but it's called TikTok. And I was like, wow, how did you hear about it? And he's 6-year-old, TikTok at home, you know. So really it all begins with parenting from the home and drawing appropriate boundaries. And Mediha is so right in talking about just us having to worry so much more about our kids' mental health. I saw this documentary where they said that kids with access to social media now, they are like perpetually living in a state of low-grade anxiety. And so having a 7-year-old and moving into that stage, like, I think it's so important for parents to really manage, to empower themselves with the tools, you know, to go into it. Yeah, but just briefly, some very quick challenges is obviously screen time management, and that happens even from a baby. I've seen a 6-month-old watching a video while their parents are eating at a restaurant, and really, so I think parents these days, they really have to do a lot more work, you know, to empower themselves.
Actually, prior to this discussion today, I was actually chatting with Sofina, whose kids are much older. Your youngest is 19, right? And we were comparing experiences. My kids are just a few years younger, you know, 10, my youngest is 10, your youngest is 19, and yet their experiences are so different. Sofina, you were saying that your kids don't really care whether or not they bring their phone out with them or whether or not they're active on social media, yeah?
Okay. What we were discussing the other time, this is the thing. To my opinion, yeah, being a mom of 26, 21, and 19, the age, at that age, yeah, I think the most important thing I would say, how is your relationship with your kids? Regardless the digital, the TikTok, whatever platforms, you kita kata TikTok, but I think there's more than TikTok out there that we don't know. The younger ones know, you know. But this is how I would say. I was at the same point where I thought TikTok is just a waste of time. I was at that moment when I thought TikTok, I had a very negative impression of TikTok because I thought it was just merely dancing and lip sync. But the fact that my son comes to me, Ibu, today there's these challenges. Today there's these challenges. So I want to connect with my son. So I want to know more about what is this excitement about, rather than I just dismiss him. What are you doing? What type of dancing? Go and do your work now. You're wasting time. Without me understanding why is he so excited about it. So that started to give me a different perception. I want to learn more about this because I want to connect with my children. And then I have 3 children. I have my daughter and 2 sons. And the 3 of them have different interests. My son, I think you all have sons. You know what their interests, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have to explain. And then I have my daughter. My daughter is I would say, the one who's very concerned about studies. So when she showed me about her TikTok, it's about her looking for a chemistry teacher. You know, there's a lot of teachers teaching on TikTok. There's a lot of educators on TikTok. And the fact that they can actually engage with the kids on TikTok, 1 minute video explaining about a certain topic of chemistry, and they find it more interesting than the teacher teaching them in school. So that gave me a different perspective altogether. So I wanted to know more about this platform because all in all, I know the other side of TikTok, but not the educational part of TikTok. So like I said, whatever your children shows you, you don't dismiss them immediately, but you find out more about it. Then it connects better because you want to be the #1 person they go to when they find out anything new. Just like Isabel, you have a 6-year-old child, she comes to you, Ma, I found this. So imagine if you do not have that connection with your child, she do not want you to know about TikTok, then she wouldn't, she is it, right? He, okay? Then he actually wants to show you about the platform and he wants to discuss with you about the platform. So you are opening a
new avenue to them.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's the key thing about how parenting has changed. In even just a gap of 5 years between your kids and my kids, it has gone from a top-down approach. No, you cannot do that. no, you must do this, to now having to have conversations with your kids about why you shouldn't do that and why we should do this. That's the real big difference here. Now, Achai, I'm really glad that you are on this panel sebab sebagai orang muda lah ya, yang mula bermain Mobile Legend umur 16 tahun. So you have had quite a lot of experience online, especially on TikTok. Apakah Achai rasa adalah cabaran utama bagi kalangan remaja bila kita bercakap dengan mereka tentang penggunaan internet, especially social media?
Okay, bagi saya kan, in my base experience, internet ni dia banyak kemudahan and banyak influence budak-budak. Contohnya, kalau dari golongan umur macam saya, 21 ataupun lebih muda, diorang akan cepat influence dengan apa yang diorang tengok. Contohnya ada benda baik ataupun benda buruk. Tapi masa zaman saya tu, saya gunakan internet tu untuk kemudahan lah, untuk cari ilmu ke. So saya start main game umur 16, saya cari research. Okay, nak main game ni macam mana? Adakah game ni boleh bawa ke masa depan? And then as you guys tengok sekarang, e-sports ataupun gaming ni dah meluas. Masa zaman saya tu, gaming tak ada. Gaming tu orang kata kalau main game je, buang masa kan. Patutnya kau kena study. Tapi masa tu saya meyakinkan saya punya parents tu, saya pergi main tournaments, saya balik rumah, saya bawa check. Ma, hari ni abang menang 1,000. Ini dia pun terkejut. Sebab by age of 16, I dah achieve something about gaming. Game yang I main tu sendiri. So diorang start percayalah, diorang start believe that gaming ni boleh pergi jauh.
Tapi umur Achai semasa Achai masih baru bermulalah untuk gaming, mulakan kerjaya sebagai TikToker semua tu. Do you think that umur Achai 16 tahun tu adalah lebih sesuai untuk penggunaan internet berbanding dengan seorang yang 12 tahun katanya?
Tak actually. Sebab kalau contoh umur 12 tahun, bagi saya tu sangat awal lagi. Unless kalau untuk education, untuk study. Sebab kalau boleh zaman sekarang ni orang muda study lah dulu. Sebab tak semua orang boleh jadi macam apa yang saya jadi sekarang. Contoh saya cakap, saya lepas habis SPM, saya terus ke scene live streamer ataupun content creator. Tak semua orang muda boleh buat macam tu. So focus on study lah. Study is number one actually.
And parents Achai masa Achai baru bermula dengan TikTok semua tu, diorang menggalakkan ataupun diorang risau?
Diorang risau.
Risau.
Diorang risau. Dia tengok, ish, anak aku ni dia tak nak sambung study ke, kan? And then bila I tunjuk kat diorang, okay ni contohnya. Ada satu streamer ni nama dia Solos. If you kenal Solos, dia ada millions of followers dekat TikTok, semua social media. So diorang macam tengok, wish, anak aku boleh jadi macam dia ni. So diorang start bagi kepercayaan tu dekat saya lah. Sebab saya ni anak tunggal. So kerisauan tu sangat-sangat tinggi. I believe kalau you guys ada anak tunggal pun, kalau umur muda-muda, wish, mesti takut kan.
Okay, this is it's a bit of a trick question, okay? Anwar, sorry you have to get this one. Do you think that today's parents are digitally savvy enough to be good internet role models for their kids?
I want to say yes. And also I want to say sejuk hati cakap, Achai cakap belajar dulu before we go into gaming. But yes, I think, sorry, I'm going to switch languages. Through experience, a lot of what we do as parents is very much learning on the go, especially in the digital age. We had to learn about how the modem works, how Wi-Fi works, how social media works, and this is an ongoing struggle. And being parents really is learning something on a daily basis. At TikTok, I think we help parents along. It's like what Mediha said. We have family tools, we have parental tools, we have guardian tools. So things like on TikTok, no one under 13 can have an account. That's age gating in what we call the industry. And, you know, a 13-year-old's experience on TikTok is completely different than what you would have as adults. There's, by default, it's private. You can't go live. There's no direct messages are blocked, so you can't use that. And sometimes we do have people who may fudge the truth a bit on the age, but in TikTok there are ways where the AI detects that maybe you're a bit younger than what you say you are, so certain things are checked as well. But with that sort of, even with that sort of guardrails, it really is, well, what Madiha said, it takes a village. Parents need to have this conversation with each other and with the children. I mean, this is as important as talking about sex education now. We need to be able to see how the internet evolves and how we can play a part. This is very much a collaborative thing, and I think it's a big leap coming from this generation where, before you were told to do and that's it, there's no real reason for it. Kids now, they ask questions, why do we have to do this? So it's learning. As a parent, I'm learning. As a child, I think they are learning as well on what to appreciate and how we can do things a bit better.
And there's still a lot to do, though, because when I asked that question, Madiha's like, obviously Madiha has a slightly nuanced view. What do you think, Madiha? Are they digitally savvy enough for what's out there?
I think we may think we are, but if we're talking about parents, we need to look at the multisectional part of parents. There are parents who barely know how to work a smartphone. There are parents who don't know of the actual risk of social media. There are parents who are really very innocent, and they genuinely believe that their child is as innocent as they are, and they may not be. So I think digitally savvy, we may know how to work the tools, but we also need to know why the tools are there. And that reason changes all the time. Because the risk online is, there's a lot. I mentioned about sex education. There's sexting going on. There's sextortion going on. There are children as young as 8 who are already sending nudes, which is horrifying when you think about it. When we talk about scams, we always think of the makcik dekat kampung or the man in the office who gets scammed, but kids can get scammed too, and they can get scammed by accidentally giving their private information to people who then can use it against them or their families. So there's a multitude of dangers out there. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this so that you understand, so that we understand, and keep up to date with what's the risk out there. And I'm not just I haven't even talked about the trends and challenges yet. I mean, even when I speak to Anwar, and he's in TikTok, he may not necessarily know what the kids are up to on TikTok. I may not know either. There was a trend where they all strangled each other, and they called it the choking game. There was a trend where they put a penny between the socket and the plug to have it electrocute, and they called it I forgot what it's called. But there are several things that they're doing online which may not land on our FYP, and we wouldn't know about it unless we actively seek it out or we speak to our kids about it. A lot of these things I learned from talking to my kids. I learned about how this thing called mewing. You know what mewing is? That thing, she's doing it really well. I can't do that. I do that, I look ridiculous. But this is basically a form of looks maxing. It's where kids as young as 12, they're maximizing their looks. And when they do that, what exactly? You tense your jawline.
Yeah, it's all about the jawline.
It's all about the jawline. So they tense it so that it, I don't know, it's wasted on me. But yeah, so they do this. And this also tells you that looks and the value that children and youths put on looks now is a lot more than before.
At 12.
At 12, I'm skinny, scrawny, oily, nothing to look at. 12-year-olds now look fantastic. They're doing skincare. They know serum. I knew serum at 30 maybe. I have no clue. I go to Watson, the basket is mostly my son's skincare products. Right? So it's amazing the changes that are happening among our youth, and we really need to know about it. So being digital savvy is great. I think a lot of us are, but we also need to be savvy about what's out there in the digital world.
So that's the stage, okay, that we're on right now, okay, ladies and gentlemen. And I think two things that the panel raised that I picked up. There's clearly a gap in education between parents. There are some parents who are extremely digitally savvy, and there are some who have no clue. And it's not based on whether they're urban or rural. There's no such thing as that. The other thing, of course, is maturity. You know, a 13-year-old is a lot more mature than a 12-year-old. You know, unfortunately, even just 1 year, there's a huge maturity gap, which also ties in with what Anwar said. A 13-year-old, anyone under 13 years old shouldn't be on TikTok. And of course, this ties in with the government's recent call for parents to limit children under the age of 13 from having social media accounts. So my question is, how realistic is this that it's followed through by parents, and crucially, that it's discussed with children? Maybe Madiha, yeah.
All right. You know, the easiest thing for parents, if you want to make it really easy, you just don't give your child access to the internet. But is that fair, right? The kids, they're digital natives. You give a toddler a touchpad, they already know what to do with it. But it really boils down to everyone. I sound like a parrot, but everyone needs to play a role. It's from the parents to the teachers to your neighbors to everyone. We really need to do this because the social media platforms, they do what they can. They put the age limit, they give you the safety features, they give you the tools, you learn how to use it, but you also need to have conversations with your kids. You need to have a structured way in every jurisdiction where everyone plays a role. It cannot be us saying the government needs to do this, or everyone lodging complaints to YB Fahmi, or everyone lodging complaints to MCMC, and you all lepas tangan. Cannot. Parents need to take that responsibility onto ourselves. Teachers need to model good social media use as well. And I think that's another thing that sometimes we fail to see. We always talk about how kids, you know, they do what you do, not what you tell them to do. So you need to model that behavior. The simplest example, if I say no gadgets at the table, my gadget also cannot be on the table, right? If I say no screen time, that's bad for you. If I'm always on my laptop or my device, what lesson are they taking? But that's the kind of parenting and connection with the youth that we all need to play a part, because whether or not we put the law or the rules or the regulations under 13 tak boleh, how we execute and implement that and what we substantiate and pad up to push that policy through is also important.
Guilty as charged. Very quickly, Isabel, Sofina, Achai, very quickly. How realistic is it to limit social media for kids under 13? Boleh atau tidak?
For me, I think it's definitely doable. I mean, I certainly don't intend to allow them social media, at least, you know. And I think that's where parenting support groups and communities, parenting communities, they come into play because they help provide a framework and a support structure for parents to really bond together and express their feelings, because we don't want parents to feel like they're struggling with this in isolation. So when you are in a community, like in our Ibu community, I see a lot of parents, they're not afraid to just ask. Sometimes they say like, sorry if I sound silly, but you know, something. And I think that goes a long way, because people who are not afraid to ask, they end up educating a lot of other people who are silent participants in the group along the way. So, you know, I think in the States, they have something called Wait Till 8, which is until 13 years old. It's a pledge, but it's not just a pledge to not let their kids have phones or social media until 8th grade, but it works as a community, I believe. Like, people in their same community have to make this pledge as well. So that, I think, goes a huge way. Like, if I know, like, the parents in my son's group are making the same pledge, it's going to be so much easier to enforce it, right? Yeah, so I think things like that will really help.
Sofina.
Okay. To me, everything, I agree with Madiha. Everything boils back to the parents. Okay, it's doable, yes, under 13 is doable. But I remember visiting my friends who runs a kindergarten, yeah? She runs a kindergarten. She told me, nowadays, it's so different from before. You know, those days, parents will come to the kindergarten, pick up their kids, engage with their kids, ask how was your day. Now, no. Parents come, keluar camera, IG story. Okay, you act like this, act like this, act like this. So you are telling you want to control under 13 years old kids. But how are you acting as a parent with your phone and with your social media? Trust me, there's a lot of parents out there who are like that. And then you tell your children, no, you cannot have internet. Internet is bad. And then you sit down and giggle, ha ha, hoo, hoo, ha, he. Your children is there, not knowing what are they doing. They are on the phone. So that's what I said. It all boils down back to the parents. You can do whatever policies, but it's still the parents. Like me, what I feel, if the child is very content with you, yeah, they don't feel the need to express themselves elsewhere except their parents, it's easier to monitor. But if a child feels like they cannot go to you, they cannot, okay, for example, there's a lot nowadays you see restaurants, parents are so obsessed with their phones. You can see them, the child has a phone, the mother has a phone, the father has a phone. They hardly talk to each other. So that's when the gap, it brings the gap between them, you know.
We're not being very good role models, unfortunately. Achai.
If I want to add one more,
Yeah.
just one more I want to add. We as parents, at what age we are, we cannot say, oh kita dah tua lah, tak tahu lah benda-benda ni. Kita dah tua lah, tak tahu all this tech savvy. No, you have to learn. You have to have the responsibility to keep up with whatever that is going around, which your child is exposed to. Then you know exactly what to or how to guide them.
So you're saying digital savviness is crucial for parents of today if you want to raise your kids to have digital literacy. Yeah? Achai, realistik atau tidak nak prevent budak bawah 13 tahun tak ada social media?
Sebenarnya dia bergantung juga pada parents. Okay, kalau contoh anak dia bawah 13 tahun, dia nak main internet, dia nak tengok TikTok, dia nak tengok social media. Kalau dia minat something, contohnya anak dia minat arts. So sebagai parents, kita pun kena involve benda tu. Kita kena satu sama lain, macam kita dengan anak kita, kena sama-sama minat. Biar dia rasa macam, wah ayahku pun macam ni. Dia suka. Tapi dia ada baik dan buruk jugalah. Kalau parents tu dia tak control anak dia, and then contoh kalau dia tengok benda-benda yang tak elok, bad things dia tengok. Satu lagi, sebenarnya kalau nak jaga diorang kan, untuk prevent diorang ni, kita sebagai parents tengok circle dia siapa, dia kawan dengan siapa, apa yang dia tengok. So dari situ kita boleh elakkan gejala-gejala buruk yang jadi and mengubah anak menjadi apa untuk satu hari nanti.
I think that's a very good point also because I'm a parent myself. Every single person in my kids' class, and they're 10, 14, everyone has a phone, okay? And they're bringing that phone to school. And my kids don't have phones, okay? So they're the odd ones out. They come home and they say, hey, mommy, everybody has a WhatsApp group and they're in it except me. Oh dear, how do we navigate that? It's really hard when the village that your child is growing up in, all of their peers are on gadgets. Anwar, I think, I don't envy you having to deal with all this being in TikTok. I'm sure you face these questions all the time. But you already limit the app for under 13 users. Can you first tell us, most importantly, what was the reasoning behind that? And secondly, how difficult is it to prevent under 13-year-olds from actually using the app?
So for us, we work in collaboration with parents, the environment around the children. We say on paper it is 13 years old and the experience is different, as I said. However, many people will say, some 8-year-old kid may sign up and say he's 24. But the AI tools does come in handy because we're able to check how, we would cross-reference certain things like, age, how they may look, how they may not look. That has backfired because I know a lady who is 62 or so, and she was deemed to be too young. And so it went the wrong way. But however, the tools are really effective. And right now with the advent of AI, I think we're getting better at it. We're getting a bit more precise. But I want to echo what Madiha said as well. It is not just about the parents. It's also teachers. And what Achai said, it is also the friends. How your the children's environment works to pressure them into certain things would be very influential. Because it's always two sides to the coin, right? I mean, what we're talking about right now is like everything is bad, everything is bad, everything is bad. But, you know, like on TikTok, there's a lot more things that's also good. There's education. STEM is a huge thing on TikTok. There is this teacher in the East Coast, Sir Asai. He's teaching English to kids in Kelantan and Terengganu, 1.2 million users. I mean, that's what's it, like 12 times Stadium National. I can't imagine that number of people. And there is a lot of benefit to be gained. And the key here is how do we balance all this? We need to be able to have certain policies. At home, I've got 3 kids. They are 11, 9, and 5 months, right? I set a very strict screen time, but I think I'm very privileged in the sense that I understand tech. Not everyone is someone that can understand tech. So the environment is really important. How a parent and another parent can say, you know, you should really look into this, or how do we channel them into doing something else? And that's critical to me.
And I think I was reading through the things on TikTok, the Guardian's Guide, the Youth Portal, and there are some excellent things that TikTok is already putting in place. But as you said, it's not just what the app can do. The parents have to educate themselves on what the app is able to do. And also the kids, the peers, they can actually report to TikTok if someone under the age of 13, like their junior at school, is on TikTok pretending to be a 14 or 15-year-old. So I think we don't know enough about these tools to be able to empower ourselves. The other thing also is, picking up from what Safina said earlier, is that the content really is dependent on the maturity of the user. An 8-year-old on TikTok is going to be watching and looking for different things than a 19-year-old who is in uni. So that experience of the social media is also very different and can be more beneficial if they're mature enough to consume it. So one thing you all said, schools and teachers. The situation that my kids are in at school, where they're dependent on social media to communicate with one another for study groups. How important is digital literacy for teenagers, and do you think it should be taught at school? Anyone? Okay, Mediha.
I think it's too late if you wait for school. I think you really need to teach it at a very young age. Because I think somebody mentioned that, you know, toddlers are holding on to devices in restaurants. Kids are getting a lot more mature these age. The statistics say that there's about 37 billion children under the age of 11 who are already on the internet. So if we wait for them to go to school, have a syllabus, I think it's too late. And I also feel that, you know, the old way of looking at it, we have to have digital literacy in schools, let's have a syllabus, let's have assessments and stuff like that. That might not be the best way to tackle this subject. I feel that it's a life skill, and just like life skills for anything else, it needs to be diterapkan in every single subject and every aspects of their lives. So it starts, yes, parents, it starts from home, and then it goes on to kindergarten, it goes on to schools, and it goes on to every single aspect of their lives. Even if they're in taekwondo class or piano class or whatever classes, there's a digital content involved somewhere. If they know that they shouldn't be used as content by their piano teacher, for example, and the piano teacher is using them for content, contohnya, then they have the right to say, Mrs. Chan, I don't think you should be filming me while I'm doing this piano class. I don't give you consent to do this. So the issue of consent, the issue of their privacy, all this needs to be taught at a very young age, as early as possible, in my opinion.
Could I also add? I think
Yes,
I completely agree. And I think these days, not having a digital understanding or literacy is as bad as not being able or teaching your kids to read. Tech will infuse every part of our lives, from driving to how we read, how we learn. So the more the children understand what is possible, what's right, what's wrong, the more they understand. And I think we need to give a lot of credit to the children. They understand a lot more than what we do. And I think they get things a lot faster than what we do. It really is it. I think I understand tech better than my parents. And I think my children, they can do things on the iPad that I was like, wow, how'd you do that? Right? So I think it's both ways, right? We need to build the trust with the kids. The kids need to build a trust with us. And we need to be able to say, we understand the needs for it, for how technology is part of our lives every day. And that conversation is something which I think every parent, every uncle, every teacher, every grandfather needs to have. And also, renung diri lah. How can we do this? If we don't do it, how can we do better? Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to add on to that because Isabel works at Ibu with very young children as well. So I want to pick up on that word, conversations. How, instead of a top-down approach where like, nope, you can't use this, what does Ibu do to teach young children about digital literacy, and what kind of conversations should we be having with our young children about digital literacy?
Yeah, I really want to pick up on what Mediha said as well. I agree with a lot of it, including the very eye-opening one about piano teachers or tuition teachers. You don't think that they might be using your kids for content, but I do think that it has to be part of the school syllabus as well, but from a younger age, primary school age. And I do know some schools are already doing that. Like, for example, yesterday I could have a conversation with my 7-year-old about social media awareness and he could tell me, the basics of cyberbullying because he learned that in class. And he could give a very basic explanation of what he thought cyberbullying is and how it's applicable to his age. So I thought that was a really good way of reinforcing, and also like ideally in a world, like parents would always be the first bastion of protection, but because we know not all parents think about it or have the access to that kind of information, the schools will provide a very strong scaffolding to tell parents that, hey, look, we work together, this is what we're doing in school, and this is what you can do at home. So I think it will go a long way to educating certain parents as well. Yeah.
So basically the school is like the safety gap in case the parents are not doing that education at home, the schools can fill that gap? Is that what you're saying?
And more importantly, like a very simple analogy at the preschool level is that at a certain point, the school will ask, like, oh, hey, it's about time for potty training. What are your thoughts on this, and what can we do to support the process? So if the parent says, like, no, I'm not ready to start, just don't do anything, then the school will go, okay, fine. But if the parent says, I'm doing this at home, please do that in school, you make sure that everything is the same, the child is constantly surrounded by the same kind of rules and boundaries, and that does a lot to keep them safe. Yeah.
What about parent education? We're talking a lot about educating the child, but a lot of the parents, as we were saying just now, there's a huge education gap among the parents. What can we do to educate parents about digital literacy enough so that they can help their children become better digital citizens as well? Sofina, you have something you want to say about that?
Then parents should go on TikTok as well. Start educating your viewers. Start educating the parents, because you see, one thing about TikTok that is interesting, yeah, it curates whatever content based on your interest. So if you created content basically on parenting, so you attract parents. So at least the parents on TikTok will learn about it and hopefully share it with their friends who are not on TikTok. Yeah,
that's a great idea. Obviously coming from a TikTok creator, but that is a great idea. Use the social media that you have to educate the other parents. That's brilliant. Achai, what is your opinion, pendapat Achai tentang penggunaan parental control, membandingkan, for example, your conversations that your parents have with you about penggunaan internet? Macam parental control ni is very macam top down kan. Mereka control macam mana you pakai device tu versus actually talking to you about penggunaan gadget. What's your opinion on that? Parental control tu bagus ke tidak?
Parental control itu bagus sebab kita boleh control anak-anak.
I want to share something. I did a content about family pairing. On TikTok, there is a family pairing. You can pair your TikTok with your child's TikTok. I did a content about that. You know what comes into my comment section? I hope this doesn't pass my son. I hope this doesn't pass my mom. I hope my mom doesn't see this content. So, Achai. What do you think?
I mean, for example kan, Achai, you mula pakai internet masa you muda kan. Masa you nak start pakai internet tu, did your parents macam berbincang dengan Achai, okay, Achai boleh buat macam ni, tak boleh buat macam ni, ataupun Achai kena belajar sendiri macam mana nak menggunakan internet dengan cermat dan beretika?
Sebab saya dulu masa kecil-kecil, saya guna sosial media ni diam-diam je. Saya duduk dalam bilik, main phone, tapi saya tahulah apa yang patut buat, apa yang tak patut buat.
Macam mana you tahu apa yang patut buat dan tak patut buat?
I think dia pasal I punya environment kot, kawan-kawan I. Dia orang banyak guide I. I punya dia sebab masa sekolah ni orang kata pengaruh kawan. Kalau kita berpengaruh dengan orang yang tak baik kan, benda yang kita buat selain daripada berkawan pun akan jadi tak baik. So kalau penggunaan sosial media tu memang saya belajar sendirilah.
Bagaimana dengan suggestion Sufina bahawa sebagai TikTok creator, you boleh create content yang educate you punya viewers, you punya followers tentang digital literacy?
Untuk create content, untuk apa?
Untuk safe internet use. Macam you, I'm sure sebagai gamer kan, ramai followers Achai adalah budak yang agak muda kan?
Okay, kalau saya buat content pasal gaming, so kebanyakan I punya audience tu adalah budak-budak. Macam bawah 21, bawah 16. So I create, and kadang-kadang masa I tengah live tu, ada budak-budak banyak komen kan. Dia orang kata, sanggup tengok live sampai tidur lewat besok sekolah. Dia orang komen macam tu. And then I pesan kat dia orang, tidurlah. Pergi sekolah, habiskan sekolah dulu tak apa. Saya ada live petang. Contoh dia orang balik sekolah 1:30, I live pukul 3. So korang boleh tengok balik. So I selalu tekankan dekat I punya viewers, I punya audience, please study, fokus study. Jangan tengok gamer-gamers kat luar sana, oh dah kayu kan, beli kereta mahal-mahal, dah berjaya. Tapi sebenarnya benda tu semua start dari study. So penggunaan social media ni adalah sangat penting. Sangat penting.
So I think there's many prongs, many angles that we are discussing here that we can approach digital literacy. There is, of course, the parents, the digitally savvy parents who do their own research and educate their children. Then you have those who are not so aware, right? And so we have the schools to help fill that gap. Then possibly there can be parental education courses or classes where TikTok creators maybe can educate fellow parents. And then you have young creators who can educate your peers. And then you have TikTok's controls, all right, where the parental controls come in, and hopefully the community bands together to make sure that it's a safe space. But again, what we're seeing here is it's a collective responsibility. I don't think TikTok alone can do it, parents alone can't do it, schools can't do it, even the creators alone can't do it. It is literally every single one of us sitting here together in this room. Now, closing off our discussion, let me touch first on how all of you, being social media users yourself, being parents yourself, of course, not Achai, maybe someday, inshallah, how do you use social media to create a positive, safe, and respectful community, a village online where everybody can learn digital literacy and be safe with each other? Any tips from your own experiences? Maybe start with Anwar.
Thank you. So I think my personal take on it is there needs to be many prongs to this. What Achai said was very important, peer pressure. Not saying don't be friends with people, but how do the children's peers shape this? Second, I think it's important to realize that the online world is beyond social media. It's gaming, there's WhatsApp, there's YouTube, there's videos. 16 hours. And that they literally subcon babysitting to devices, right?
Yeah.
And that may go off kilter most of the time. So like in TikTok, we have the family guides, we have the family pairing. That may not be enough. Teachers, the community needs to learn about how these would affect future generations, how these sort of social norms, because technology is so prevalent today. Everything we do is a technology. I mean, from your glasses that you have, that's tech, to your smartwatch, so on. So we, in TikTok, we have the community guidelines. We try to make the environment safe. We don't allow for bullying, for example, or pornography. But partners, teachers, parents are our best partners. How can we work collaboratively enough to be able to keep the future generations safe? And that's it.
Achai, sebagai orang muda, strategi Achai untuk membantu community online ni jadi tempat yang selamat untuk anak-anak muda yang lain.
Okay, benda ni start dengan creators tu sendiri yang anak-anak tengok. So sebagai content creators ataupun influencer, diorang kena tunjukkan role model yang baik dekat social media. Sebab benda itulah yang anak-anak akan tengok. Dia ni siapa? Dia ni okey ke tak? So sebagai content creators, kita kena tunjukkan role model yang bagus lah. Supaya diorang rasa social media ni, oh baik. Macam tu.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you, Achai. So Fina.
Okay. I agree with Achai because coming from a perspective of a content creator, a mother, we content creators, because now the social media, TikTok or whatever platforms, there is a person that they actually follow. You know, this is not something that they followed and ads. No, it's a person. So most children, most followers, they get addicted, or they really want to see what's next. So I believe, the content creators has a responsibility. I mean, all of us has a responsibility. Like Madiha said, it takes a village to raise a child. Yeah.
For me, I think there's two things to think about. One is viewing this as really navigating a partnership with your child. You know, it's not about protecting them from the whole world forever, but really teaching them like why you're doing it and making sure that they understand the decisions, they understand the impact, so that they are equal partners with you in this. And another one is really I think I can't stress enough on parents need to understand what is development as knowing why below 13 is just not suitable, because at some stage you do have to say it's not that I'm controlling you, but these are because you are currently just not capable of making that kind of decisions. But you don't talk down to them in that way, but really tell them that why you're doing it and making sure that they understand it's for their own good. And I think we've seen that a lot of teenagers, now that they've reached 16 or 17, they can tell their parents, we're relieved that you did that, because now we can see in retrospect that it was so bad for our peers. So I think parents shouldn't sink into this despair that we're in this age, but rather parent from a place of hope. You can do anyways.
So love that so much. It's a partnership. Yes. Okay, Madiha.
I also love that you say we come from a place of hope, because another thing we need to see is that we can actually use content as a way to have these conversations with kids, as a way to send these messages. Because I don't want my kids to be left out, that's one thing, but I also want them to be able to learn from the messaging the way that I want them to learn. Contohnya, right, if something is trending on TikTok, I use that as a conversation with my sons on what they think about it. There used to be this trend on TikTok, which was really weird. It was a long time ago, where women would dance and then pretend they dropped their towel, for example. I don't remember if you know that. And then there are other content where it's all about teasing and stuff like that, And I've got sons. I have to have these conversations. So I use that content as a stepping point for conversations, age-appropriate ways with the different ages, with the different boys. So I think one thing we can all see is that we will not be getting rid of social media. It's here to stay. How we regulate it is one thing, but how we deal with it and engage with our children in having conversations about the content is even more important. And I think that's basically what we've all been saying here today, that it really does take a village.
I totally agree. And I think in closing, everything that we've picked up here, the parents form partnerships with other parents as well to make sure that their children and our children are safe together. That's why I love the word partnerships, because I think in essence, that's really all that we're doing today. We cannot work and keep people safe online in a silo. It is a collective responsibility, all stakeholders working together, hand in hand, for a united mission, which is safety online. Personally, as a parent, this is what I've picked up from our discussion today. We have a responsibility to educate ourselves. Educate ourselves. If reading and going online and searching is not our thing, go on to social media, find the creators where you can learn from them. There are, okay? Fill up our algorithm with all of this positive stuff that we can learn from. There are lots of resources. On TikTok in particular, there's the Guardian's Guide, there's the Youth Portal. Read it. I thought it was a fantastic read. So many things I did not know. So I educate myself. Then I go online, I share that with others. Next, social media has changed the way we parent. It's not a top-down approach anymore. We have to be partners with our children. We have to have conversations with our children that we are probably not ready to have. I've been talking to my kids since they were young, 4 or 5 years old, about why everyone else has a gadget and why they don't. And trying to explain as they get older why certain content is not suitable for you and why certain habits are not helpful for you. And when you start those conversations young and you keep talking to them as they get older, then hopefully by the time they're 13, they will be responsible digital citizens, being good peers for their other friends online out there. And so I hope in a nutshell that kind of wraps things up. Anyone else want to add anything before I close off our panel and take questions from the floor? We good? Okay. All right. Now I'm going to look into the questions that you've shared. For those who joined us later on, we're accepting questions through QR code, and I am accessing it from my phone right now. Would love to hear what your questions are. If you haven't actually scanned the QR code yet, please do now. Would love to hear your questions. Okay, wow. Okay, we've got 4 questions so far. You ready, guys? We've got about 10 minutes to take these questions. So let's kick off the first one. Okay, kita tahu TikTok hanya membenarkan pengguna berusia 13 tahun ke atas. Selain tindakan penguatkuasaan melalui AI ataupun automated monitoring, apakah tindakan lain oleh TikTok berhubung penglibatan kanak-kanak dalam pembangunan kandungan di TikTok? I think this is a question for you, Anwar.
Terima kasih. So I'll answer in English. So the question is a fantastic one. So we are a tech company at first, so we use AI to help detect, because it's not possible to scan every single content that comes on TikTok. In a second, there are many hundreds of millions posted. However, the AI can detect as well if there's some abnormalities to it. Maybe it's a bit doesn't really mean what it says, and that is why human intervention is always needed. The augmentation that humans provide to be able to moderate is very critical. And the machine is a machine, right? It's everything that you do is machine. We can teach it, but it will never be as good as humans. So we train our human moderators to check how if they are under a certain age, for example, does it work at a certain age, or some other contextual things that that machine may not be aware of. Maybe it's bullying in a very discreet sort of way. We're not quite sure. So, but we always have humans to always help that, and they are trained for that. In Malaysia, there are 4,000 moderators. Wow. So they are something that is scanned throughout. And globally, I don't actually know the number, but it's a huge number of people. And this is one of the biggest cost items in the P&L, but I think it's a really fantastic investment. We need to, safety is our main priority here. And our mission is to inspire creativity. We cannot inspire creativity if it's an unsafe place, right?
Yeah, correct. And that actually ties into the next question that we got from our audience. How does TikTok manage youth who can legally use TikTok, the ages of 13 to 18, if there is a bully or something else that happens to them?
Okay, another good question. So bullying, so in TikTok we have the community guidelines, right? We have community guidelines that goes again, that talks about harm, abuse, pornography, maybe even narcotics. So bullying falls under that. If bullying is something that is detected, it is removed. It breaches the community guidelines. Again, we want to create a safe space. Right? We inspire creativity, we bring joy. Bullying brings no one any joy. Maybe except the bully, even then, you know, maybe someone that's hurt. So we have these in place. The AI comes in as well if it detects it. Again, we have human moderation and intervention, but it's also possible to report. Right? We can report, don't forget that as users of the app, we can report if we see a bullying case. And that's a partnership that we try to foster, and we want to be sure that everyone has a fantastic experience on the app. The experience is different. I mean, I know sometimes comments can get cut, sometimes direct messages can also hurt, but we do our best to try to bring that down, and we try to detect it before it occurs. Like, you know, keywords, certain facial hand signals, that comes down. And it goes against the community guidelines.
Can you also report if you know that there is a user who is under the age of 13?
Yes, of course. So these are things that we work. The AI isn't perfect. The human moderation does help. But if you see something, say something. That's something which we want to work on as well.
Yeah. Great. Now, this is another great question. What is the ideal age then, despite the formal age being 13, for kids to own their social media account? How can parents play their role in ensuring the safety of their children in this new playground? So yeah, so if social media platforms have determined that it is age 13, but what are your personal opinions on this? Let's open this up to all our panelists. Mediha.
Just a little bit of highlight here. The reason why 13 is the cutoff date is based on how America has the Children Online Privacy Protection Act.
Yeah.
And around the world, it's the same thing. It's about protecting children's data from being abused by people online. Yeah. Because if you download an app or if you're on social media and then you get data from kids, this is against the law. So 13 is based on that. Of course, it's also tagged to the fact that children below 13 are not yet mature enough or have the cognitive development to do all this. But I feel that it really depends on the kid.
Yeah.
You can have a 13-year-old who's your firstborn, who's very responsible, who makes good choices, but his neighbor or his friend might not be that savvy. You can have a 16-year-old who you still won't trust on TikTok because she's so gullible, right? And there you might even have a 40-year-old who you don't trust on TikTok because she's putting out weird content. So it really depends on the person. And as parents, we should know our children best. And you know, if one day we decide that, oh my goodness, social media really needs to be on a higher age maybe, or even a lower age, it's something that's flexible that we can adapt to what is needed. Mm-hmm. But right now, I think it's really dependent on how we see the children. Right. You know, it's not a magical age. You know, you protect them until 13 and then go ahead. You know, it's not. Yeah. It really is something that we need to do as well.
Actually, I totally agree. 13 can be a baseline, but then beyond that, it really is based on the maturity level that we perceive from our kids. For example, my daughter just got her own social media account. Yeah, she's 14, okay? At 13, I asked her, no, mommy, I'm not ready for it yet. She was a bit afraid. And I guess I also take some that was when she decided, okay, I'm ready for this now. But mommy, you gotta handhold me, okay? Okay? So I think yes, it really comes down to your individual relationship with your child. Okay, last question. I think we've only got 5 minutes left. So, this question. Even if we control from our side, kids learn from their peers, and peers play a big role in their lives. Kan, Achai? How do we handle or navigate this problem when, I guess, peers are the biggest influence in a teenager's life? Macam mana? Kan, tadi Achai cakap, sebenarnya pengaruh kawan. So, macam mana kita nak ajar mereka bila kawan adalah pengaruh terbesar dalam kehidupan mereka?
Senang cerita, okay. Kalau contoh, dia orang duduk satu kawasan perumahan. Tak semua orang kat situ adalah orang yang baik. Contoh, ada seorang tu budak nakal. Bagi contoh kat dia, you nak jadi macam dia ke? Abang nak jadi macam dia ke nanti? Macam tu, kita kadang kena tegas sikit lah.
Tapi online, susah sikit.
Betul.
Kita nak identify siapalah budak nakal, kan? So macam mana Achai handle semua benda ni?
Tengok TikTok dengan dia sekali lah. Tengok apa FYP dia keluar. So kat situ kita boleh tahu, oh anak kita ni apa yang dia tengok sebenarnya.
And I think it also comes back to something that Sufina brought up just now as well. The algorithm is influenced by the kind of content that you are already viewing. So kita tengoklah apa yang dia suka, apa yang dia follow, apa yang dia put on dia punya social media, and kita boleh tahulah lebih kurang what their influence is like. So I guess if we can teach our children as well how to identify good content, positive content, so that they are following more of that kind of content, then the algorithm will also help to feed better content to them. Is that right? Okay. Yes, Isabel, please.
I just want to say that parents shouldn't worry so much about the peer pressure part, but that is really where the early relationship comes in. You know, you can't wait until your kid is a teenager before you go, hey, you can tell me anything. No, it has to be right from the beginning. And really, I think why it's so good that you're not allowed social media before 13 is because it gives you time to nurture their sense of self-identity, so they are not so dependent on peer approval. Like, I think your daughter, that's so great because she feels comfortable enough now. Like, I think the danger with below 13 is that they really have no judgment, you know, like whatever people ask them to do online, they'll just do it. And they have
likes and follows.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think really it's really all about the foundation, the relationship. If you have that, then you don't have to worry so much that your child will need to seek validation from their peers. Yeah.
And it's like what Sufina said earlier as well, right? It's really about that conversation that you have with your kids.
Yeah, at times when I have conversations with my kids, yeah, all of them will be fighting with each other. Who's going to tell me first? You know, in the car, me first, me first, me first. When I'm listening to their stories and how their friends sometimes hurts their feelings, in my heart I feel so sad for those children who do not have these moments. You know, my daughter comes back and tell me about her peer pressure and everything. I'm just wondering, what if a child comes back to the house and there's no one to talk to? And no one for them to share whatever experience that they have gone through. That is very sad. So coming back to our points today, it all boils down back to us as parents, partnership with our children. Yeah.
And of course, we can't do it without the media as well. We hope that with your help, members of the media, our friends from the media, that you can spread this word outside of this room. We will all do our own individual part to be a member of this village, and we hope that you can help spread this word beyond that village. Thank you so much for your time, panelists, and thank you so much, everyone, for your rapt attention. Let's give our panelists a big round of applause. And before we send them off for refreshments, let's have a group photo, why don't we?